legends where magic meets the heart. Commanders Pod, where the stories unfold, with heroes and villains new and old. Dungeon Jeff and Sloan got the word. In the world of EVA we play.
Hello, everyone. Welcome again to Commanders Pod. I'm your Podfather, Duncan.
I'm Sloan.
And I'm Jeff.
And today we're going to do a deck tech for one of our Patreon supporters. They really want a Final Fantasy deck. They put one together and they said, help me fix it. So we're going to go through that. We're also going to have Aggro Jeff, I believe, is making a second appearance.
Sure. Easy to find someone to be aggravated about with you two.
His 60th appearance or something.
Right.
We're going to have a That Doesn't Do What You Think It Does. We're going to have a Tales from the Table. Pro tips this week?
Yeah, probably geared towards this deck that we're building for our Patreon, yeah.
Okay. All right. So let's get into it. Aggro Jeff, what's aggravating you?
Armchair GMs. So I'm a huge basketball, sort of football fan. But I love the Orlando Magic. So anybody who likes Orlando Magic, I'm old school Orlando Magic. I like Penny was my first basketball shoe I got. It was a big deal to have a pair of those shoes, and I was heartbroken when Shaq left, and I'm a big Magic fan. So the Magic made this great trade, in my opinion, for Desmond Bane. Very cool trade, big deal for us. But as soon as I go on any platform, I got people telling me what an idiot our GM Weltman is. And everybody's talking about how dumb he is, how they'd make a better decision. And it's just aggravating because this dude he's built up his career through the NBA to be the leader of an entire organization. And we got guys at home sitting in their mom's basement telling us that they could make a better decision. And it's just, maybe be a little more humble. Maybe you're not as good as that guy. They do make mistakes. GMs make mistakes, and they do bad things, and we can definitely argue about that. We can definitely have opinions about that. But to call them dumb and attack them and say you'd be better, not a big fan of that. That kind of aggravates me. I think it's kind of stupid.
I'm actually gonna tag team with you. My favorite that you get is the people that said, "Oh, I told you 3 years ago that was a bad." Those are the worst.
Yes, absolutely.
You didn't know 3 years ago.
Yeah, the prophets.
Stop it. Yeah.
The prophets. Yeah.
Yeah, everyone looking back 3 years ago now knows that was a bad idea.
I will accept you as a prophet if I get to stone you when you're wrong. So I think, right, Johnny? We'll accept that.
Yeah, that's acceptable.
If we can stone you when you're wrong, I'm fine.
Yeah.
So other than that, enjoy your armchair. Go ahead and put the lazy boy all the way back. Enjoy the TV show. Stop going on the internet and ranting about how you're better than everyone else. You're probably not.
All right. So good news.
Right.
It was about magic, kind of.
I mean, yeah, technically.
Yep. Bad news. There's people that just turn this off because they're like, "Oh, this isn't the magic I'm interested in."
Wrong magic. I thought this was Magic the Gathering.
Yeah,
I guess we got to be more
guys.
specific. We wanted them to do it more about magic.
That's true. That's on us. No.
Yep.
Yeah, be more specific.
Yeah.
All right. Tales from the Table. I don't know if I want you to do this one.
Oh, this is such a good Tales from the Table. So we have our Commander League every single week, as we've been talking about on Saturday nights at the shop. And afterwards, we actually have enough of our friends here at work that play in it as well that we try to get a game together after the league's over so we can spend some time together. Well, we're playing a game. And Duncan is playing his commander that creates creatures, lands that are also creatures. The forest guy.
Yeah.
What's his name specifically?
Jotty.
So we're playing this, and Duncan does a dirty move. He puts on an enchantment that turns all lands into creatures.
Yeah.
So basically,
mine are creatures. Why aren't yours?
Right. So basically,
I mean, it's kind of nice.
Yeah. Well, the thing that was evil about it was he knew I had a board wipe, and so it's like now I don't want a board wipe because it will reset the entire game. And so he's just kind of, because he gets to make his creatures bigger that are land specifically, he loves it because he has a bunch of 4/4s or 5/5s or whatever they are.
That's not a threat I'd be comfortable with, giving you the choice to do it or not to do it. I'm going to guess this did not work out in his favor.
It did not. Yeah. So one of our buddies killed the enchantment on his turn. It gets to Duncan's turn, and Duncan's like, all right, well, now that enchantment's dead, Sloan, you've got to do the board wipe now because Mike, our other buddy, was out of control. Like he had like Grave Recursion. He was playing one of the new Final Fantasy decks. And once again, this is the third time I think I've seen it. Great. Every time I've seen it, it does exactly what it's supposed to do. So it's doing the things. It's bringing creatures out from the graveyard. They're getting triggers. He's getting more creatures. His everything. It's
He's
ridiculous.
getting stuff out of our graveyard.
Yeah, he's getting stuff out of our graveyard. It was just insane. So it gets to my turn, and I was like, I think I have to do it. I have to pull the trigger. So I pay for the board
No,
wipe.
but you didn't have enough.
Right.
So you were going to use Blasphemous Act.
Well, this was the second time.
Oh,
I'm talking about the first
okay,
board wipe.
yep,
So the first board wipe, I go to do it, and I was like, all right, guys. I was like, I think I got to do it. And Duncan's like, I 100% agree. You absolutely need to do it. So I placed the board wipe down. And everyone's like, all right, great, it happens. Duncan's like, give me 1 second, sir. And goes and casts Heroic Intervention.
Yeah.
Yep.
To give
Well
us some
done.
protection. And I said, oh, thanks for casting that. Here's a counter for that, sir. So he did not get to keep any of his creatures. They did not have Indestructible. And the best part was that was literally a counter I just got that night. And the best part about that counter, it says, counter target spell with mana value 2 or less, which is Heroic Intervention.
And how
at
much
2.
did that cost, that spell?
That spell? 2.
So, Duncan, you played your Heroic Intervention into a board wipe where you had 2 open mana?
With 2 open
Yeah.
mana.
And a blue player.
I mean, it was partially blue.
Bad
he was
decision.
blue out of his 3 colors.
Blue,
Bad
black,
decision.
red.
I got to try. But the thing
absolutely.
is, to his credit, if he hadn't done that, I was going to win.
Yep.
Because I had 5 creatures that were lands, and I had my commander, and I had a Crater Hoof in hand.
Yep.
But he did do that.
Yep. So I did the board wipe, and then so it goes around. Again, our buddy Mike gets out of control again. I was like, you got to be kidding me. So I go to do the second board wipe, and I counted wrong, and I was one land, one creature short.
There were only 7 creatures
yeah,
out, not
and I
8.
needed 8.
Someone
So-
had a flash creature?
No,
So he already had one land that was a creature.
I already had one land that was
Because
a
he
creature.
stole my Nissa, who makes lands creatures.
So
Okay.
I activate her ability to make another one of my lands a creature, so I can get to.
But
8.
it's going to die.
It's
Yeah.
gonna, but I had to do it. So for the
Yeah.
cause, I sacrificed 2 of my lands to do another board wipe to get off the Blasphemous Act. So sometimes you need to be the hero that the table
Did you
needs.
win this game?
I did not.
Oh, wow.
Mike ended up winning. Mike's deck. By the way, if you're gonna get any Final Fantasy deck, from at least what I've seen, the red, white, black one that recurs is insane because board wipes do not affect it. It's like
mean,
whatever.
He recovers
Yeah.
every round on one turn.
I mean, anybody who's out there who's played recursion decks, you kind of know that. That's why you
Yeah.
play Graveyard Hate.
Yeah, right,
That's
exactly.
why Graveyard Hate exists. And the interesting thing about most stacks type stuff that hates on other playstyles is hated.
Yeah.
Graveyard Hate is not. The only people who hate Graveyard
Because
Hate
it's dirty
Graveyard
necromancy.
player.
It's okay
Yeah.
to get rid of dirty
Yeah,
necromancy.
but it's completely unmodified. He hasn't added any cards, taken anything out. It's exactly how it is out of the box. And every time I've seen it pulled out, it performs great. Never seen it have issues with color, getting your right colors and everything.
But he was a magician before he worked here, though, right? With flipping the cards.
No.
But yeah, no, it's really good. So it was super fun though. We had a great time. We stayed out way too late because we played another mode called Emperor, and that brought us almost to about 3:00 in the morning.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, that's
Yeah, and
wild.
it's even then it didn't end. It was just like we can't.
I mean, technically, I would have. It was my turn. I would
yeah,
have win.
no, we'll see.
You even told me I was.
Yeah, probably.
Well, took it back now. 'cause
Yeah.
that wins out the door.
Yeah, right. So, but anyways, it was a good time. We had lots of fun. Commander League, I actually went 0-3 because I tried to Dirty Notion Thief Windfall combo again, and I got killed immediately for it.
You deserve that. Yeah.
yeah.
How
And
did you do in your
I
games?
did 1 and 3,
Okay, so
or 1 and 2,
1 and 2.
1 out of
Nice.
3. Yeah, I've been having a rough time.
Yeah, people. I guess word got around that I keep Notion Thiefing Windfalling, and so people are like, "Yeah, we're just gonna kill you first, so you can't try to do that combo." I'm like, "Why?"
And for me, playing the Just Guy Striker deck, people were just like, "I'm gonna kill your commander over and over and over."
Yeah, that
so
always stinks.
I've been having to win without that, which in a precon is tough.
Yeah, it's pretty rough. So,
But-
but I'm still having fun, having a great time. We're coming up to the end. We just finished week 8.
Yep.
So we got
4
4
more
weeks.
and
4
I
more
will
weeks.
not be there this coming week because I'll be in MagicCon Vegas.
Yeah,
But
very exciting though.
Yep.
Good reason to miss.
Yep. So let's have a that doesn't do what you think it does, just real quick, because this came up actually in that same game.
Yeah, it did.
So, and we asked like 4 people the question and got 4 different answers.
Yeah,
So-
no one had a right answer. I think Connor.
I had the right answer.
Yeah, you were correct. Connor, the shop owner, then verified with Josh because Josh wasn't there Saturday night.
Well,
And Andrew.
Andrew told us, and then Connor.
And then Connor, yeah.
verified.
So we had a couple of verifications just to make sure
But
this
so
is right.
vehicles, when they're turned into a creature, and you then give them an equipment or an aura.
Yep.
Jeff, do you know what happens when it stops being a creature? Let's say you have an aura and an equipment on a vehicle that was a creature, and now it is no longer a creature.
I think it. Oh wow, because it's equipped creature.
Right.
So I would think it falls off.
What about the aura?
The aura is not equipped creature. It's not attached. Is it attached to a creature? I don't think it is. I think it stays on.
Okay, so see, there you go.
Yeah.
They both fall off.
Yeah.
Do
Yep. They
Okay.
both care about it being a creature.
Correct.
If it is not a creature anymore, they fall off.
Yeah, I couldn't remember what aura says.
Yeah, I knew auras fell off. I didn't know. I thought equipment stayed because equipment, I thought specifically it cared when you go to equip it that it's a creature when it equips and doesn't really care what happens after that. But I guess the way equipping works is similar to enchanting creatures where it has to maintain that
Because it says creature.
creature type.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it says creature. I knew, but I just didn't know what aura says.
The exception is the Aether Spark.
Yes.
So, but yeah. So anyway, that's how vehicles and then auras and equipment work.
Yeah, interact with each other.
Yep. Once it's no longer a creature, they fall off. So equipment will stay on the board, and the aura having no valid target goes to the graveyard.
Yep.
So let's get into the Final Fantasy deck tech. This is for one of our Patreon supporters, Tim.
What's up, Tim?
Tim,
Thank you.
thanks for sending this to us. I thought it was good. So I don't know if I should put the link to the deck in the notes because if he changes it, well, I guess I'll put it. It should
I
be good.
wouldn't. I just say that he has a deck
Right.
that he's working on.
He has a deck he's working on, and he basically put every Final Fantasy card in this deck he could.
Right. All the ones I'm assuming he had
had
available
30
to him after.
But can we ask Tim if you do when you're done and you make corrections and you submit the deck to us, we will let everybody know and put it in when you're ready
Right. Yeah.
with some correction. When you're ready to show it to the world.
Right. But he said, he knew it wasn't going to work the way it was, but he was trying to jam pack it. He wanted it to be Final Fantasy hero/villains, is what he said. Mm-hmm. And so I thought he meant creature type, but I think he just means in the game heroes and villains. So basically,
Yeah, there are some heroes and some villains.
yeah,
Right.
all the characters. Because there weren't that many heroes or villains, you know what I
Right.
mean? And he just wanted it to have as much Final Fantasy as possible. And he had the Final Fantasy version of Kenrith the Returned King.
Right, which I have it right here. So
Which was
this
pretty
is,
cool.
I mean, yeah, the art on this is actually really cool. I don't know who this character is. It's Noctis Lucius Calum. I hope I said that right. So it looks to be, very full. So showcase art, so all the way extended out to the edges, and just a dude sitting on the throne with a big old sword in his hand.
Yeah.
These are
so
the
pretty
Can we
cool.
show a picture right here?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is the showcase art. So this is why he went
Well,
with
it only exists in the showcase art.
right.
So he's from the throughout time or something like that. It's called basically the Magic Through Time.
Yeah.
They have reskins for Final Fantasy.
Yeah, and this character is from Final Fantasy 15, I guess. XV is 15, right?
Yep.
Okay, yeah, so I'm right
Yep,
there. So,
so-
Final Fantasy 15 is where this guy comes from. So specifically, he wanted to do 5 colors, which is why he picked
Right.
quote unquote Kenrith.
All right.
Who's a utility commander? Yeah.
Right. So
So first thing I did when looking at this deck was hold it up against last week our common mistakes in building decks for EDH, and I said which of these mistakes did he make? So I would say, and he knows he made some of these. Not enough focus because it was Final Fantasy theme. There's no cohesive deck strategy.
right.
It doesn't have one theme running throughout that keeps it kind of set.
Well, it has a theme, but it doesn't have a
Right,
a
it doesn't
theme
have-
that wins. The theme
It doesn't
is
have a point.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah, it has the theme of Final Fantasy, but no. Besides the Final
There's
Fantasy
no
theme,
direction.
there's no other theme within it. It's just Final Fantasy.
Yep.
Yeah, no way to get to a win.
And then it also has too much focus because it's so focused on Final Fantasy.
Right.
There's several cards that should be in the deck,
Right.
but they're not because they don't exist in Final Fantasy.
Correct.
And he said he wanted to keep it as much Final Fantasy as he could, so I think he's open to putting some of those in.
Yep.
It's not too dependent on the commanders.
Because he mentioned ramp and mana rocks didn't have to be Final Fantasy in his first build.
Right.
So now we're just going to suggest maybe some more than just that.
So it wasn't too dependent on the commander.
Right.
There were no win cons beyond Kenrith and trying to get, but he doesn't even have infinite mana in there to make Kenrith
Just go off.
infinite. Yeah. And pet cards, I mean, I didn't know how to answer that. It's kind of all pet cards because it's all Final Fantasy and that's what he
Right.
wanted to do.
Yeah.
But sticking to it so stringently causes the deck to not have many things in it that you need to make it viable.
Well, based on how much equipment he has in there, I think maybe equipment is his pet
I think
cards.
that's just
It's a
because
lot of
that's what
equipment.
Final Fantasy had.
Yeah, Final Fantasy did a lot of equipment because of the fact that it's so heavy and obviously a fighting game
Yeah.
with swords and stuff like
And
that.
really cool swords. Like, aren't they the ones that invented that big giant sword?
Yeah, the Buster Sword.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so.
that is the sword in Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
So some of the specific suggestions I had that were possibilities to kind of make this work. You could make it a Legendary Matters deck, kind of legendary
Yeah, that
tribal.
could work. Yep.
Or you could it had some Reanimator or Graveyard Recursion. You could go that route.
Yeah.
Focus on that. And Kenrith has some stuff that work with that. Equipment, Voltron style, if that's what you're going for. There's the equipment guys and the equipment that's in there. You could go that way. And then just kind of general, general suggestions. Definitely need the mana base improved. I think we all kind of said something about that when we were talking
The
about
lands,
this.
yeah.
Yeah.
He has okay ramp in there, but the lands are pretty bad.
Yeah, the lands. The thing I'll say is he does agree with me that there should be more basics in decks. But when you're playing a 5-color commander, you don't have that luxury. You need every card in that deck to provide multiple colors or go get you
Or
something.
3 even.
Yeah.
Yeah,
if you
well,
can.
that would be multiple. Yes.
And also, this has a landfall sub-theme in this. Well, it has lots of sub-themes, this deck.
Right.
But landfall is one of them, and so having any sack lands would be of immense value.
Fetch lands of any type, even
Yeah.
Terramorphic Expanse could help this a lot.
Yeah.
But you need multicolored lands and or fetches to make this work.
Right.
In a 5-color deck.
Mm-hmm.
And I think probably a few more mana rocks to help with the color fixing.
I don't
Right.
think I'd go rocks if you have green,
I mean,
especially with the landfall theme. You
either
don't
or,
wanna-
either more ramp
you don't-
or rocks, one or the other.
Well, yeah.
And then another generic one I said, add more interaction. Because this is Final Fantasy, there's no Swords to Plowshares in Final Fantasy. It's a
Right.
single white mana. You need that in this deck.
Right.
You know what I mean? There is a counter spell in Final Fantasy, but it costs hundreds of dollars. You could proxy it. It's called Stay With Me in the Final Fantasy version. I'm sorry, that's Rhystic Study. Stay With Me is Rhystic Study. The counter spell isn't that expensive. So you could put that in there as a counter spell, but you still need more counter spells or something. You need interaction in there. There just isn't really a lot. Kenrith is a good choice as a 5-color commander because he's 5-color and he has some things that do.
One of the best
things.
toolbox commanders out there.
Progenitus really wouldn't make any sense for this. Some of the 5-color
No, but
commanders-
Alara, the one that keeps doing board wipes, could work.
You could.
Maybe.
But I think Kenrith's a good choice. We do have some better choices depending on which themes you're going for. We'll talk about later. The main thing is I think you need to pick, like Sloan said, pick a theme.
Yeah.
Pick a direction. You have to narrow it down and have something more cohesive,
Right.
more deciding which direction you're going.
Right.
You can't just have all the Final Fantasy cards. You're gonna have stuff all over the place, and when you don't have your equipment guides, you're gonna get your equipment. When you don't have your
equipment, you're not going to get the guys.
Yeah.
You'll have the guys, but then you won't have the equipment. You're not going to have the recursion when you need, like...
It
Yeah.
seems unlikely he won't have guys. He's 35 creatures in there, and almost every enchantment, every other thing creates creatures, including the equipment.
Yeah.
So I actually don't think creatures with the equipment is going to be a problem, but I do think
Well, the
just
ones that
equipment
care about
can't win
equipment.
by itself.
But the equipment, the creatures that specifically care about equipment, there was 10 of them out of his 35.
Yeah, it's
Which is... And then he only had 10 equipments. So it's just not enough to where you can't be guaranteed that you're going to have one of the creatures out that cares about having equipment and having the equipment at the same time.
So-
It's too unlikely, in my opinion, of a likelihood.
I
Right.
know you have a direction you want to go here, and the thing that I'm suggesting isn't as much a direction. It can fit with whatever directions you guys want to go with. Do you want me to talk about that, Duncan, or wait?
Just give me a second because I'm
Okay.
almost done. Just the main thing too. We talked about win conditions. There is the Kenrith. There's many ways to have a reanimation loop. You bring a guy out, you sack it, you bring him back, you sack it. You're getting value. You're building up mana or whatever it's doing, depending on the combo you're doing. So that is an option, but I don't think it's going to fit as well in the Final Fantasy theme.
Right. There's not a lot of stuff that cares too much
Yeah.
about reanimation in this with the Final Fantasy
Right.
card specifically.
And then the last thing I was going to say, just kind of generally, there's some cards in Final Fantasy they're cool flavor
Right.
and they're neat cards. So maybe he wants to keep them in because they are, but they don't really help you win. Cards like Instant Ramen,
Yeah.
Blitzball. There are better mana rocks out there than Blitzball. Chocobo Racetrack. I don't think that those type of cards are really driving you towards.
Now, I
the
would
finish
argue
line.
Blitzball is actually going to be good in his deck specifically because of the amount of legendaries he has. The second ability is going to be super easy for him to always draw 2 cards.
Right.
That's
Well,
the
if
reason
you go
why.
the legendary route, yes.
Well, even right now with his current creatures in there, almost at least 20 something of them are legendary.
right. So I mean, it
yeah.
could, but I'm
But
saying
like-
depending on the theme, there may be better options.
But like battle menus, not very good. Heroic magic is not very good.
Haste Magic, I think that was.
Haste
What was
magic.
it? Haste magic. Sorry.
Yep.
Restoration magic is iffy. I mean, there's enough things in there where it's like there are better options for your support cards. Which,
But
did you go through
what,
that?
what we're going to try and do is get better direction from our suggestions.
Right.
We're going to try and get some more interaction in there.
Right.
And I have a way to
and-
make the theme work
Okay.
with these ideas.
Okay. So, Jeff, yours is more broad, so why
Yeah.
don't you do yours first?
So, well, and to speak to something Duncan's going to talk about too, which I don't know if you want to talk about this now, but you mentioned the legendary matters. So let's say, I think you had suggested on yours Captain Sisse,
Yep.
right? So I think that was a really good choice. I was talking about Morophon and going with like arcane adaptation where you are making all your creatures all creature types. I think there's 4 separate cards that can accomplish it. But
At least.
whoever you go with as a commander, what I was thinking is it doesn't have to be Final Fantasy, and you can have room for more non-Final Fantasy cards if you come up with a good, cool story. And the way I was thinking was with Morophon or Sisse or any of these, that you think of it more about these are the creature that's going to summon or bring the Final Fantasy world into the battle. Okay? And then think about the rest of your cards the same way. So a lot of your card draw could be green, right? So you play a creature, you draw a card. Play a creature, draw a card. Well, you can think of that as like I've completed a part in the game that's earned me and unlocked a new character. So every time I play a character, I unlock a new character. And that's what that card draw is. So think of that card draw as now as unlocking new parts of the game, right? So that's the story behind it. You could do that with Ristic Study. Also, you could do that with any of the green draw cards. Then also for like interaction, you could go single target interaction, but you could also do something cool and just say, I'm going to have all my interaction be board wipes. And my board wipes are going to be game over, right? So my it's not so much what's on the board wipe, it's a story about it. So when I play the board wipe, it's a game over, it's a start over for the whole game. And you're sort of playing into the theme of the video game Final Fantasy with cards that don't necessarily match Final Fantasy, but they go together really well. That way you can feel
Yeah.
like you're still being true to your theme.
And you and I talked about the options of Sisay or Morifon.
Yep.
The problem with Morifon in that you have to now add cards in to make them all that type.
Yes.
You're adding cards that if you don't do Morifon, you don't need. So since we're trying to fit things in and try to keep it as whole, I think Captain Sisay is a better match.
Yeah.
Because Sisay will go get you the other legendary creatures you want from
Which
Final Fantasy.
the thing that'll be cool is you're losing the toolbox of Kenrith, but you're gaining the toolbox of Sisay. Because if you know that life gain is going to work really well against who you're playing against, you can go get your life gain creatures, and then you can just. What you basically have is a deck that says, I have all these different ideas. I can go any of these ways. Depending on the situation I'm in, I could use Sisay to go get them.
Yep. So that's a good way to kind of change the commander and thereby give you some more leverage your commander to get those cards out a little easier. Kenrith doesn't really help you focus the deck, and I think Sisay can help you focus it better. But another way you can focus it, Sloan, you had a suggestion.
Yeah, so my suggestion was when I was looking over your deck, the big thing that I noticed is that a lot of the creatures in Final Fantasy care about actually doing combat-based stuff. So I would lean into the combat thing, and the nice thing about the current commander you have, being Kenrith, is he actually does a couple of things that are really nice. One, for 1 red, creatures you control can trample and haste until end of turn. Great. I can spend 1 red and give all my creatures haste that I just put out and trample, and they're going to do some nasty things. His second ability, 1 and a green, put a 1/1 counter on each target on target creature. I'm sorry, put a 1/1 counter on target creature. Also very good for swinging out and hitting people. So the first 2 abilities, which are the 2 cheapest, are going to allow you to buff your cards as they come out, your creatures, and allow you to have them immediately swing, so you don't have to worry about someone cracking back with the board wipe. You can swing at them the minute they come out. And so that's a big thing that I saw. And so in my opinion, when I looked through your deck and I saw it, there are things that are happening that are a little scattered and kind of all over. And so in my opinion, the best way for you to make this a little bit more centralized and themed is to drop the equipment matters kind of stuff in it, in my opinion. So there's about 9 creatures that you had currently that specifically only do things if they have equipment attached to them or if there's equipment on the battlefield. And then you had about 9 equipments, and all of them are great equipments, but the downside is if you don't have out one of those people that can equip it for free or attach it for free or cares about the equipment being out, it's great, but a lot of their equip costs are 6 on top of the cost for them to come out, which was 4 to 6. So that's very expensive commitment if you don't have one of those creatures that could cheat out the equipment or cheat it onto a creature. It's a very expensive commitment to have when you have something that can give everything haste and a creature 1/1 counter.
Are any of the clouds not equipment based though? Or are all the cloud
Well, the 2 that
characters
he has in
equipment-based?
here are both equipment based.
I think all the clouds are.
So the
equipment-based.
thing with that is
I think even the third one in the pre
cloud's a pretty important creature. You're going to want to keep that in this deck. How could you have heroes and villains deck if you don't have cloud? So I think Johnny's right in that you need to cut it down. But I think you could survive with a couple of equipment and still keep your cloud.
Maybe
in there.
keep equipment that does things for you, like go
Yeah.
get you lands or something that can
or
further
the
your
ones
game.
that create their own creature.
There's
Because then
that
you don't
too.
have to equip it.
The job select, yeah. The only downside is, again, some of those is they don't really do anything else besides their equipment.
Yeah, and they're not
Right.
like super strong, so it's not like you're getting a big beefy guy out of it.
Yeah, you're getting a 1/1 that has a 1/1 attached.
What
you
do
know.
the 2 clouds do? Because he's a very important character here.
Oh, I know. I understand he's a very important character, but when you're trying to build, like for example, Cloud Midgard Mercenary. When Cloud enters, search your library for an equipment card, reveal it, and put it into your hand, then shuffle. As long as Cloud is equipped, if an ability of Cloud or equipment attached to it triggers, that ability triggers an additional time. Great. He gets it and puts it in your hand. You still have to pay to get it out and pay to attach it to him, which with some of the equipments, like I mentioned, you're dedicating 6 mana to do that.
And what does the
12
other
mana.
cloud do?
The other Cloud is something very similar. During your turn, as long as Cloud is equipped, he has double strike and indestructible.
I
Equip
think that's
abilities you activate that target Cloud, this one, costs 2 less to activate. Again, he helps mitigate the cost of the equipping but you still have to have the equipment in your hand and be able to put it out and then equip it to him to get his ability.
And the way this deck is built currently,
right.
you have no way to ensure you get Cloud.
And
be
you
able
have
to do
no
that.
way to ensure.
No, if you play Sisay,
Yes, that would
you
work.
could go get him.
That's
Yeah.
right.
So I mean, you could.
That's
choose-
what you do. If you get the Duncan, you hit it. If you get the equipment that you want, then you use Sisay to go get Cloud, but only if you get the equipment. Otherwise, don't get Cloud. That's a great idea.
So that
works
is-
perfectly.
But
but
one option is to cut the equipment themes because
Because my thing was too is I was trying to keep Kendrith as his commander because that's who he sent us. So I said I'm going to leave your commander who he is. It is a Final Fantasy commander. And it's 5 colors. So the advantage of Kendrith specifically with him being a Final Fantasy, he sticks on the Final Fantasy theme. And because he is 5 colors, there are a lot of creatures that aren't in here that can replace all these equipment creatures that do the theme that I think you should do, which is focus on dealing combat damage to players. So all the creatures that you have in here that gain life, the lifelink creatures, I left them all in there. All the creatures that do 1/1 counters with either landfall triggers or creatures entering the battlefield triggers, I left them all in here. Again, with all of that, when you kind of look at it that way, they're almost, I think it was 11 or 12 of the creatures I counted have lifelink. You know how deadly that would be with Hope on the field, who says at the end of your turn, however much life you gain this turn, each opponent mills that many cards.
Just how do you get Hope though? That's the challenge. It's like
right,
yeah, if you don't get her though, this deck is like
but that's the
really
thing is,
crappy attack deck.
It's not that crappy though, because you have haste and trample from your commander that costs you 1 red for all your creatures. You have the ability because all your creatures, the ones that I left, now granted I didn't have time to look through and find ones to replace them with. I do apologize. I was trying to do the best I could to give you good trading cards for it in regards to switching them out. But there are a lot of creatures that specifically care about creatures entering the battlefield, that care about putting 1/1 counters on things, and a lot of those are in here. So again, the sub-theme of now all my creatures, I care about them dealing damage because a lot of them have lifelink.
Yeah.
A lot of them have benefits from lifelink. A lot of them have benefits from dealing combat damage. Those are all just, here are a lot of strong creatures that I can buff up and make hit hard that gain life and give me a lot of advantages for dealing combat damage and attacking. And because right now, as it sits, you have 35 creatures in this deck. That is a lot of creatures.
That's typical in a Kindred deck. This
Right,
is not Kindred, but
Yeah, and so that's my point is if you wanted to stick with, if you kind of want to show off all of these cool Final Fantasy characters, obviously creatures are going to be the best way to do that. But there's a lot of really strong creatures in here that even if you don't have your commander out or you don't have equipment out, it doesn't matter. They're still good by themselves to where they are going to be giving you advantages throughout the game.
I think this could work. And what I have to remember is that he's not playing against 3 and 4s. He's probably playing against 1 and 2s in this.
Yeah.
So whatever you end up choosing on here, you have some choices, but you don't have to when you do a themed deck. You don't have to have every card, all the enchantments, all the sorceries, all the instants, all the lands. Not everything has to be
that theme.
Final Fantasy. Matter of fact, I'd suggest it shouldn't be.
Unless you're building tier 1.
Well, but come up with a
And
story
then in
that
which
makes
case
it
you've
fit.
got it.
Yeah.
Just run with
Yeah,
it.
you're right.
Yeah.
Tier 1. But come up with a theme that makes it all fit, and then it doesn't feel as theme breaking.
And you have to decide what's the things that are important to you.
Right.
Yeah.
If you're like, Cloud's my favorite character, I want him to be in here, I'm not getting rid of that. Okay, well then maybe lean a little more into the equipment.
Right. So that's the other suggestion I had. So let's say you're like, you know what, I really want Cloud to be in this deck. Like Cloud is the most important thing. I'm going to get the 3rd Cloud and put him in here also, which is the one that's the commander for the precon. Great. Look through and see what other equipments Final Fantasy has to offer and start grabbing those and nabbing them. Because the big thing that's going to happen is, and I think this is potentially the issue, but again, Final Fantasy is very heavy with equipments because it's a video game, and in video games you get a lot of equipment, obviously. So you're going to find out that a lot of the equipments that came in the Final Fantasy set are not going to be great for a 5-color deck that doesn't care about a specific theme.
Right.
Like the Buster Sword's great. I mean, it is a great equipment. It does really nice, cool things with equipped creature gets +3/+2. Whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. Then you may cast a spell from your hand with mana value less than or equal to the damage without paying its mana cost. That's a great
That's
equipment.
an amazing sword.
3
Yeah.
to drop, 2 to equip. fantastic.
Keep that in the deck, no matter what you do, because when you draw that, it doesn't matter.
And
It's good.
the one right next to that's really
Yeah,
strong.
the next one right next to it, I'm going to butcher the crap out of this. Etier and Prewen. Now, this is the one I was talking about. 6 to get out, 5 to equip, but equipped creature has base power and toughness XX, where X is your life total. Again, very, very strong.
Yeah.
But I agree with Johnny. That's too much.
Right.
The Buster Sword I'd play.
Well, that
I
could
would
be a
not play
finisher,
that
though.
one.
But the difference with this card is this one is one of the ones where if you're going to go heavy into the equipment theme, you can probably keep, because there are ways to cheat this out.
Right.
That allow you to make it equip for 1
Or 0.
or
yeah.
0, because you have the vendor in the creatures, which is the guy that specifically says once a turn, I believe, weapon vendor. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if you control an equipment, you may pay 1. When you do, attach target equipment, you control the target creature.
Which
Great.
the other thing that's important to understand in a themed deck like this is, like, typically when you're building 1 or 2, you're like gonna stay away from tutors, right?
Right.
Some of this stuff where you go, okay, I'm building this really hokey theme that's really hard to put together. I have tutors in here just to make the thing function. As long as the tutor's not going to, like, get you the instant win combo, but you're going to get, like, the sword to go with Cloud, I think most people would be fine with that. I don't think anyone's going to fuss
one of the
about
clouds
that.
even lets you go get equipment
Well,
and put it in your hand, like we read earlier.
I
the
don't
mercenary.
think he wants this to be a 2 or a 1. I think he'd like it to be a 3.
Yeah.
I think that's fair to say. In which case, you are allowed a few tutors, you know. So.
I don't even know. Even with the legendary theme, which is the strongest possible theme, this would be a very difficult deck unless you really were willing to lean into a more specific theme in the legendary and add other legendary matter, even creatures.
Right.
You'd have a very hard time being competitive out of 3.
I mean, the only thing I would say is I have been following the Final Fantasy stuff since we started talking about it a couple weeks ago, and we've been going through it, and me and Duncan have opened boxes and looked through a lot of cards for Final Fantasy. So I know a lot of the cards. I do not know all the Final Fantasy cards. So the only thing that I would say is, unless I scour through every Final Fantasy card, there's probably a chance that you could maybe make a Final Fantasy deck a strong 3.
Well, they
a
put
decent 3.
they did actually put
But-
some cards in there that are legendary matters.
Right, there are some in here that are legendary matters, which is why, like, for example, Venat, Heart of the, oh gosh, I'm going to butcher this, Hydaelyn? I don't know how
Can't
to
say you can't play it. How
I-
does that work with Final Fantasy?
Whenever you cast a legendary spell, draw a card. This ability triggers only once each turn. Then you can pay 7, tap it, exile target non-land permanent, transform Venat, activate only as a sorcery. And then when
Yeah,
she's
it's good.
transformed, the best part is she flips over into an indestructible god 4/4 that says, at the beginning of combat on your turn, put a 1/1 counter on another target creature you control. Until your next turn, it gains indestructible. If that creature is legendary, draw a card. Well, they're all going to be legendary for
Yeah.
the most part. You're going to draw a card, it's going to be indestructible, and it's going to get 1 bigger.
I would say some of these cards are so much fun. Like, when you go through and look at the cards that are in this deck, they honestly look like a lot of fun. I don't know that when you play this deck, you have to be trying to win. You might just be trying to play your cool cards, and that's fun too. But I think your best chance of being competitive is to have the sorceries and instants, enchantments, as many as possible, be not Final Fantasy. Let them support your theme so that you have a really good foundation. Like, you have this foundation of these other cards, and then you put the Final Fantasy heroes and villains on top of that great foundation, and then it can still work. Especially with Sisei as the commander, I think is a good way to go. You could probably still do it with Kenrith, but you're just not going to win as much.
If you're going to do it with Kenrith, you got to put things in there that give you tons or infinite mana.
Yeah,
You
I
gotta
mean,
put things-
Vivi with as many. Well, you don't have. Well, I mean, right now you do actually have a decent amount of non-creature spells. So Vivi would be great in here because
Plus, you have
could-
ways to put +1 counters on
Right,
things.
so you could make Vivi real big, real quick, and then you can tap it for like 10 blue and or red mana.
But again,
you have
that's a
to be able to
specific
get
creature.
Vivi.
Yeah, you can't.
So-
if
You
you
need-
keep Kenrith, it's going to be real tough to have
You
specific
need card
creatures
draw.
You need to get
There is definitely not enough card draw in here, which is the thing most people always forget. And you have so
Yeah.
many creatures, so I would make it creature-based card draw. And what that'll at least allow you to do is like, oh, I don't have the creature I need. Okay, well, draw 10 cards. Oh, there it is. You know, like,
Yeah,
But
I
it's
mean,
still hard. This is a
there's-
hard deck.
There's a lot of cards that you can get, and again, I don't know if they reprint them in Final Fantasy, so I can't tell you. But there's a lot of cards that say, based off the number of creatures you control, draw that many cards. Based off the power of target creature you control,
No, they
draw that
really
many
did
cards.
not put those in here.
Yeah,
Yeah,
They-
but that's
they didn't make them
okay.
in Final Fantasy. So,
Play
but,
them, and like I said, it's your unlocking a new creature. I unlocked 10 new cards, and just like in a lot of games, when you unlock one, you open the pack. You don't know what's in the pack. Okay, well that's what I just did. I opened a pack. Just make it part of the theme. You'll be fine.
yeah, I mean, in regards to big idea swings, that was mine. The one that I saw was if you drop the equipment theme, because as of right now, there's just not enough in this version of your deck to support that. If you drop this equipment theme and focus more on just the creatures and the power and the toughness theme and kind of attacking, because a lot of creatures that are already in here care about attacking. And doing things off of attacking and dealing damage. So, and you have a lot of stuff in here that already also cares about having the creatures give counters and buffing up things. So, it's very easy to kind of fall into that. And then, again, based off of what I saw, I would have to agree with Jeff. The card draw is lacking a little bit. So, finding a way to kind of dig through a little bit quicker if you're going to try to stay themed with Final Fantasy, the Ristic Study, like Duncan mentioned, they did make technically a Final Fantasy Showcase version of that. I know that the non-foil version's sitting around 100. The foiled about 450 now?
It's dropped. It's like
dropped a little?
250 or
It's like
something.
250? Okay, so the regular one probably dropped also. But, yeah, I mean, there's ways that I just don't know all of the cards that they did in Final Fantasy, so I can't give you 100% confidence in that answer.
There's not a lot of card draw
Right.
in the game. There just
Yeah.
isn't.
You have to go outside.
You're
and
going to
that's
have
okay.
to go outside.
Yeah.
And you've got to choose. Going into the lands again, I mean, the towns are cool, but the amount of cards that care about towns are so few.
Yeah.
I would get rid of the towns that aren't directly adding to your win chances. Like, you need more, like I said, dual lands, tri-lands, fetch lands.
Yeah.
And the towns are kind of holding you back there. As much as I love the Clive's Hideaway because it's a hideaway that's colorless, you don't want that in this deck.
Yeah.
You need the color. You cannot. You might be able to squeeze one or two colorless mana producing cards lands in here.
Yeah.
I wouldn't go any more than that.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the ones that you have that are from the set that, the towns that come in tapped, like they're going to give you 2 lands. Now, obviously, we understand not everyone can afford, $700 dual lands, so don't think that's
But
what
there
we're
are
telling you
ones
to do.
that come in untapped if you control.
Right. And a lot of those are only a couple bucks, so they're a lot more reasonable. Now, granted, they have the requirements that you have to meet. But, I mean, for the most part, a lot of times you're going to meet those as long as you get the ones that are the generic, not so much about the basics. Because, again, you're probably going to be running fewer basics in here, which I'm surprised Duncan even said those words that came out of his mouth. But, yeah, you're probably going to be running closer.
I mean, he's not running a ton. But
Right. I would probably say you should average maybe 3 per basic. Like, so 3 swamps, 3 mountains, 3 forests. Like, that should be your
I mean,
most.
I
know
think
you got
he's
a couple.
probably
That's
averaging that
15
now.
basics
So,
in a 5-color deck.
right. And then
that's
you
not gonna
have.
work.
And
But
then you
if
have
you
20,
have the fetch lands,
and
then
you-
it matters.
And if you also have the cultivate and the
Kadama's Reach.
Kadama's Reach only care about basic land types. So you have to go get basics. So that's
Right,
4
but-
right there.
Don't play
But-
those.
And then you also Evolving Wilds and Terramorph and Expanse both care about basics. So that's
Right.
6. That's 8 more. 6, 7 lands right there. So, but
But you're not going to run into all those.
sure, but you're also not going to run on all 15 of your basics either. And I mean, the big thing is, like I said, 3 again, based off of just the generic of what I'm seeing here. I wouldn't run more than 3. It could even be less than that. It could be only 2 of each. But
I wouldn't run more than 6 or 7 basic lands in a 5-color deck, and I play a bunch of them.
You can't do that.
Yeah, I can.
That
I do it
means
all the
one
time.
of each and maybe one extra.
Correct. Yeah,
So if somebody mills you, there goes your basics, and
but you don't. But in a 5-color deck, you don't need basics.
I mean, if you want to
all right.
fall
And then
to
when
the blood
somebody
moon-
plays back to basics or Blood Moon, and
I mean,
you're
the
hosed.
one time they do that, they don't do that often. Your deck needs to function all the time. For the one time you're going to get got, you're going to get got. It is what it is.
the Adventure Lands too.
Yeah, they're cool. They're Final Fantasy, but I don't think you can afford them in this
Why?
because they are single mana lands, and
Yeah.
they come in tapped.
Well, but you guys are saying you'd play basics. They're single
They
color.
don't come in
They don't
tapped.
come
But
in
this
tapped.
has utility of other stuff you can do with it.
But are you going to pay
mana
6 to mill half of somebody's library
for
when you have
three-
no
when you don't
no
care
other?
about milling?
Okay, not all of them, but
Right.
dip-
Create a
some of
0/1
them are
black
good.
wizard.
Yeah.
You're going to spend 3 to create a 0/1 black wizard.
No, but some
Right.
of them are good.
Well, that's what we're
Those
saying.
two.
That's
The-
2 of them right there. There's only 3 more.
That's, you create a 1/1 colorless hero creature token, put a 1/1 counter on it for each land you control.
That could
That
be
one
six
could
mana.
be good.
Yeah, that could be
one
good.
Could be
Yeah.
good, but it's 6 mana. That's late game good, early game.
Not so good. You're not going to do anything with it. You're going to probably put it in tapped.
You just pick out which lands that you love, like what areas of world, parts of the world in Final Fantasy you love. Find a way to hold on to those.
I mean, I would
and for the rest
definitely
of them,
cut
try to
the
replace them.
cut the basic towns before I cut those, but I would still cut those.
I mean, I would honestly, because if you really want to try to stick as much Final Fantasy, I would keep the basic towns. Like, yeah, they come in tapped. It's going to make you 1 turn slower, but at least it's more on your theme of what you care about.
Do they
Except that-
tap for 2 colors?
no,
They tap for black or green.
no.
Yeah,
Some of
that's
them
good.
do.
Every single one of them do.
Okay, that's
Town,
not the ones
town,
I'm talking about.
Town.
Look at those.
Tap for black or green
Look
or
at
blue.
that one.
Oh,
Look
that's
at
the
that
one
That's just
colorless.
one. Yeah,
you're
don't have
you're looking
that
at
one.
2 colorless.
Yeah.
All of they made ones for each color cycle. So there's green,
there's-
blue,
But
blue,
even
red.
like that one,
There's
you get
nothing-
colorless or you filter. That's not good.
That's Capital City,
But you might
right?
want Capital City. That seems like an important one.
and also it has cycling.
Yeah.
This one has a little bit more utility than this one. This one, the Adventures In, I would for sure get rid of. It comes in untapped, but it produces 1 colorless.
Tapped lands typically you want to stay away from, but heavily themed deck like this, you're
Yeah,
probably fine.
yeah.
I just think there's too many other ones to keep, like the Capital City that's a filter land, or
The Hideaway,
the
Clive's Hideaway.
The Hideaway you should probably get rid
yeah,
of.
you gotta get rid of that one.
But if there are ones that
And
you
then what's-
love, keep the ones you love, no matter what it costs.
Well, I mean, if you're doing Clive's Hideaway, though, it cares about legendary creatures.
oh, it does. What
Yeah,
does it do?
pay 2, tap it. You may play the exile card without paying its mana cost if you control 4 or more legendary creatures.
What's? Oh, okay. Yeah, that's actually good.
That'd be
Can
on
you-
theme.
Can you hide away anything?
It's yes.
Your
if
top four.
Top 4.
Oh yeah, I'd keep that.
So-
And it's on theme. That's fine.
I would keep Clive's Hideaway over Adventures In for sure. 'cause
Adventures In
In
just gains you a life.
gains
right?
2 life.
Yeah, who cares?
Taps for colors.
Unless, again, if the Adventures In is like the thing you love and like the story is all your heroes start there, great, keep it.
No, you don't need that. You
listen
got
to
Starting
us.
Town, bro.
So in the beginning, Jeff,
Starting
you
town.
agreed that we needed to fix the mana base, and then now you're saying don't cut any of that.
No, fix
You
the
just-
mana base, but pick some ones you love. Whichever ones you love, keep. The
But,
rest
but,
of it,
but I'm just
correct.
saying you have physically said, keep the adventure lands, keep the towns, keep the tapped lands. So what are you getting rid of?
Some adventure lands, it's not a problem if you played tap lands because they still tap for 2 colors.
And
That's
don't-
fine.
Yeah.
Triomes are better. Tri-lands are better, but you'll probably be fine in this deck. And then any type of favorite lands, you have a couple of those, and you'll be fine. That's only going to take up like 10 or 12 slots. But remember, I'm not going to have basics, and my idea would not have basics. So
Yeah, I mean, I would say ultimately when you're looking at these, all the ones that come in tapped, but they tap for 2 colors, you're probably good. The other thing is too, unless you're playing a 3 or higher kind of bracket level, 3, 4, 5, your lands coming in tapped are not going to be detrimental to your.
But like I
overall
said, I
game.
know Tim. He doesn't really play below 3.
Right.
the
So
only problem with this, Johnny, is they don't have land types on them. So
right, these are not land types, so you can't
that's-
use any of these search ones that care about land types.
unless there's ones you love, like certain ones that you love that you're really into. I'm going to go back on what I said and said, because we know if you keep that landfall sub-theme, you need to have lands.
Well, if he is doing a landfall sub-theme, then he should probably keep the wandering, what's his name? The wandering
Minstrel.
Minstrel. Because the reason why is the wandering minstrel makes it so none of your lands come in tapped.
Is that a legendary?
Yeah, it's a legendary.
Okay, perfect, yeah.
So, I mean, again, this is ultimately all of this comes back to what we talked about at the beginning of this, when what Duncan emphasized, and kind of the big thing we always see when it comes to building a deck. Like I mentioned, with all these new cards coming out, you're going to want to do deck building. You have to find, here is my theme. Now, how do I get to the end of the game and win with this theme? Mm-hmm. Those are the 2 questions you always have to answer. And like Jeff mentioned, sometimes you're going to have to give up a little bit on one to get the other. So if you want to get to a theme where you're winning more consistently, you might have to give up a little bit on the Final Fantasy theme. And if you want to stick more with the Final Fantasy theme, you're going to probably have to give up on winning a little bit more consistently then to get to the Final Fantasy the Final Fantasy theme. But just because I mentioned it, the Wandering Minstrel, lands you control enter untapped. At the beginning of your combat on your turn, if you control 5 or more towns, create a 2/2 elemental creature token that's all colors. Pay 3 colorless. Wooburg. Other creatures you control get +X until end of turn, where X is the number of towns you control. That is someone that cares very much about towns and cares very much about landfall.
So I would say if you get rid of the towns, get rid of him.
Yeah, he's one of the
Possibly,
ones I said cut in my initial list because he specifically cares about
Your
towns.
lands come in untapped, but all the rest of it you lose.
Right, yeah.
The other thing to take into account too is when you play this deck, when it's heavily themed like this, and you tell people, "Look, this is what I'm doing. I have Kenrith. It's heroes, villains. Other than some support cards, almost everything is here. Here are all the sub themes. This. People are going to go, okay, that seems like a silly deck. It's fun. You're probably not going to get targeted as much.
Yeah.
Lean into the politics.
And I think a couple things. If you want this to be a 3, you're going to have to make some tough decisions.
Right.
Yeah.
You're going to have to pick the main thing that you want this to do and do it. If it's legendary tribal, you could make that work, but you are going to have to fix some stuff. You need to, again, if you want it to be a 3, you're going to need to have some, like Swords to Plowshares, Pongify, Beast Within, some counter spells,
Board wipes.
Farewell, or Vanquish the Horde maybe, or Damn or Damnation.
Yeah,
There's billions of them now.
Yeah, there's lots of board wipes that you're going to want to run. The other thing is too, if you're going to go with kind of, I'm going to make a creature-based deck, so I'm going to be swinging out a lot. One of my favorite things ever, and these guys will tell you, Fogs. Fogs are going to be great for a deck that's constantly swinging out and has no one back to defend. You can run Fogs.
I don't know how you get those Fogs in with the other cards you need to actually interact.
Right, but
with this deck.
And like I said, I listed about 21-ish cards that I recommend cutting, 22-ish cards I found that I would recommend cutting, which would open up a lot of space for fixing the theme and maybe honing it a little bit.
I mean,
but again,
7 or 8 of those have to be card draw.
Right,
I think we just need too many things to. Maybe you'll have a couple Fogs, but I don't think you're going to be able to.
Right, but again, this is if you're going when you pick your theme. If your theme is all right, I'm going to make a very aggro-based deck where everyone's constantly swinging. A lot of times, the two things that are really good for those types of decks are I need to make sure there's no blockers in my way. Kenrith gives you trample, so you don't really need to worry about that as much. You're going to force people to block you, and you're going to kill all their stuff. The other thing that you need to do is how do I keep myself from getting swung back on the crackback? And a lot of times the answer to that question is Fogs if you're not going to be doing board wipes. But again, that depends on what theme you're going to pick,
right.
Which ultimately, Tim, you have to pick.
Well, you get to pick.
Yeah,
it's
you
going
get
to
to
be
pick.
fun.
Yeah, and the thing to remember, if you do want this to be a 3 or a 4 or whatever, this can't be a 5. It's not going to be a 5. Hate to tell you. Sorry, sad.
Yeah.
It's never going to be a 5. However, if you want it to be a 3, you get 3 game changers.
Yeah.
Pick those 3 game changers based on what you need. Cyclonic Rift would be a great one for that.
Probably top pick for me for this deck would be Cyclonic Rift.
I would go with card
Rhystic
draws.
Study might be another one.
Rhystic Study, something that draws cards.
But
because you can't run into things that work together. Synergy is going to be harder.
But
so
if you stick with Kenrith, maybe you want to use those spots for some tutors.
That's another.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So you really got to choose wisely.
Yeah.
And the problem is, without knowing exactly which direction you go, we can't tell you exactly. We can just give you some broad. If you're going to do this, do this. If you're going to do this, do this.
Right.
But get the stuff you need. You need card draw in here for sure.
Yes.
Almost no matter what you do, you need to have some of that.
I'm going to tell, I really do think the coolest idea is Duncan's Captain Sisay and put Kenrith in the deck and then give yourself that toolbox feature. Because the cool thing about that is you could be talking to your buddy and be like, hey, have you seen this card yet? Hold on, let me go get it. And you just go get it, summon the creature you want to show them, and you're cool. I mean, people will think that's awesome.
Right.
And then they're going to be like, well, why did you summon that? Because you haven't seen it before. It doesn't help you win, so.
Yeah.
I won because I get to play the cards I want. So
Right.
I'm winning right now. And then the cool thing about that politics-wise is you're no longer the threat. And some of these cards can just win on their own. Like, they're powerful. So all of a sudden, you can do some cool stuff.
The other thing about Sisay, though, is you need all 5 colors.
Yeah.
It's Wooburg to go get them.
Right.
Yes.
It's that her activated ability cost.
You know, you can't be like, oh, I'm missing color. It's not going to work.
No, you
So
have
you-
to ramp. You have to do stuff.
And I believe Sisay's ability is just an activated. It's not a tap ability, if I'm correct, right?
I think it taps. I had it pulled up.
I know.
But I don't
It would have been
realize-
so smart for us to have that card
I
in
did
front
have
of
it
us
pulled up, and then we
when-
stopped talking about it, so I closed the window.
Excuses, Duncan. Excuses. Yeah, it's just a pay. You don't have to tap.
Yep.
So, I mean, that is this would be very good for the legendary theme, which most of the cool main characters from the Final Fantasy set are legends. So you would have that theme still. You would still be able to play all the really cool heroes and villains, quote unquote, characters. And then with Sisay, you're literally just going and getting the ones that you want.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the nice thing with the versatility of Sisay is you can get the ones that you need in the instance that she comes out. And so most people, the way they play Sisay is they don't actually cast her when they have 3 mana. They cast her when they have the Wooburg open after the 3 mana.
Yeah.
Yeah, so 8 mana. Yeah.
Getting her out before the 3 mana, unless you have a ton of legendaries, because she does
Yeah.
buff herself for legendaries.
Yeah, but if you're gonna play 5 color and play a lot of basics, like one card you could put in there is land tax. There's tons of stuff. You got to figure out what you want to do, and then, like I said, build that foundation of the cards that you can build off of, and then put the heroes and villains on top of it,
Right.
and you should be okay.
Right. And we're just kind of talking around in circles at this point. I
Yep.
mean, it's too hard to get any more specific without knowing what you want to do. You know?
But hopefully everybody out there heard a little information that can help them if they want to build a theme deck, sort of what to do, what not to do.
Or I'm sure there's other people who have been like, I want to build a deck with as many Final Fantasy cards in it as I can fit.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, so there. You
I mean,
go.
it's definitely a fun set. They did a good job with it. I think a lot of the characters, again, when we had Taylor on, he kind of explained how a lot of their abilities and everything makes sense for who the character is in the game, which is super cool and super exciting that it seems like they did pretty good job on sticking with the source material. So all of you huge Final Fantasy fans out there, hopefully you're enjoying these cards that you got your hands on.
Yeah, and
that
keep
Magic
playing
made.
Magic.
Yeah, keep playing Magic. Please don't just hoard them
And
then
listening to the
set them on a
show.
Yeah.
shelf.
There are people doing that too, though.
I
I'm
know.
sure.
It makes me so sad.
Yeah,
But that's okay. Why does that make you sad?
Because they're
They're
just,
supporting us getting to play this game.
no, not them listening to us. I'm talking about the people who.
No, they're hoarding them on the shelves. They're supporting us being able to play this game because the game's making money. Therefore, Hasbro wants to keep making cards, and that means we get to keep playing.
Yeah, but somebody's probably sitting on a Fabled Soldier special art, and it's just sitting in a box somewhere, and we'll never see it.
Well,
Yeah, that'll make the other ones more valuable.
Yeah, that doesn't help me though.
well, to
But-
be honest, none of them will help you.
That's
That's
true.
true. You don't have any of them.
That's our suggestions. That's pretty much it for today, I think.
Yeah.
Think we covered as much as we can. Thanks for joining us. Really appreciate Tim, you writing in and sharing your deck list and asking us to go over it.
Thanks, Tim.
That was fun. You can always check us out on youtube.com/@commanderspod. You can check out our website, commanderspod.com. You can email us if you have any comments, questions, concerns, want to tell Jeff to get a better beard, whatever you got to
Rude.
say. Whatever you got to say, just you can email us, cast@commanderspod.com. And if you'd like to support us, patreon.com/commanderspod. We'd really appreciate it. We appreciate our supporters and have some big things planned. So last thing I want to say, just remember, play bold, swing wide, and don't forget to pay the one.
Commander's Pod, where the stories unfold, with heroes and villains, new and old. Duncan, Jack, and Sloan guide the way in the world of EDH we play. So tune in, friends, let's draw and go. In the Commander's Pod, the love will show. From my decks to yours, we share the spark in this world of magic. We'll leave our